ophthalmology, general surgery. So I got to know the city pretty well, and I feel it's, it was for a while, it seemed like a second home. I know some of your colleagues from other pursuits. Dr. Maha Amir Al-Til was a member of the Miyako Leadership Development Program, 2007, 2008. And I think I visited with her a couple of times on later stops. Your two colleagues, Dr. Nancy and Dr. Amal, are EU LDP graduate and participant. So I know them through that program. I was active with the EU LDP when Nancy was in the program, and haven't been since. So your nation's special friend of mine, and I know that you are surrounded by ISIS. You're surrounded by Israel, Syria, Iraq, and Saudi Arabia. So you're in a tricky zone in the world for sure. And I think about you often, and I think you're probably tolerating the virus better than most other nations, it sounds like. So I respect your health system and your population for sheltering.
We've been pretty strict with the virus situation. Yeah.
So that's the introduction. Why ophthalmology? For me, the question is probably better, why medicine? Because I had no intention to be a physician early in life. I wanted to be actually wanted to be an astronaut. And I pursued aviation after attending the U.S. Military Academy, where they seemed to be making astronauts in way back in the 60s. And so I flew in Vietnam because that's where pilots in those days went. And I realized, well, I don't know that I want to fly helicopters. So I tried graduate school in aerospace engineering, and that was very difficult. I tried teaching at West Point, and I was not a good teacher. So I said, well, what's left? Medical school. That was so much fun, and I think ophthalmology was my easiest career decision because I don't have the patience to be an internist or a pediatrician and really a psychiatrist and listen carefully. I don't have that kind of patience. I was not the orthopedic general surgeon kind of person either. And I like the ease of ophthalmology. You look and you say, I know what that is, and I know how to fix it. And 90% of the time, we can come to a quick conclusion, and not all patients are easy. I never pursued fellowships in furthering my ophthalmology education. I knew that I was probably best suited to be a general ophthalmologist. And I retired a couple of years ago. My wife and I are we like to say we're in the fourth quarter at age 76, and I haven't seen a patient in a couple of years. I miss it, but I have stayed active because of my interest in you, the young ophthalmology population. And I was not a formulator of YO US AAO, but I did develop the leadership program pretty much in tandem. And we did have an organization. Is there a question?
No, that was like.
Okay, I did have certainly reason to pursue bringing the next generation into focus. Our organization realized that we were falling behind in when we get around to oculopolitics later, but we were falling behind in oculopolitics, and decisions were being made about our profession, and we weren't really engaged. We weren't at the table. So we developed a leadership program that incorporated potential state society presidents, potential specialty society presidents. And that's a selective program as opposed to YO, which is an open door, anybody can join. The leadership program is by nomination, state society, specialty society, and one international society every year that participates. It's a 3-session program, but we keep our graduates in the game. We ensure that they get positions of responsibility in their state or specialty. We ensure that they have a career pathway that focuses on leading. And we try to say, this is not just ophthalmology. We want you to be engaged also in the family of medicine. So in your state, we want you to be engaged not just with the North Carolina Ophthalmology Society, but with the North Carolina Medical Society, because we're much stronger in numbers.
Yeah.
So that's sort of the background how I wound up in the academy through our state society, and then I did some activities with the politics of medicine for the academy, and it led to international pursuits, and that's where I found my second career in global ophthalmology. So that has led to helping the EU LDP get going, the Asia Pacific Leadership Program. As I mentioned, we did one Miyako Leadership Program. We should do more, and I'm hopeful that this activity and engaging with the Jordanian Society and the YOs will lead to that. So that's sort of the highlights. I want to say one other thing. This isn't just about ophthalmology. I would say I would put the profession of medicine first, and ophthalmology as just part of the family. And thinking about the family, this is a good time, since we are sequestered, to realize that I think we're getting to know our family better. I've been Zooming on Sunday night with children and grandchildren, and there is some value in this strange environment.
Yeah.
So I might want to stop right there. And if you had, I'm still, by the way, pursuing aerospace medicine, and I bought a ticket from Richard Branson, and I'm on the list to fly into outer space. And if he flies this year, I think I'll fly in 2022.
Really?
Yes,
That's
I got a
interesting.
ticket.
That's
Ready to fly.
really interesting. Well, that takes a lot of adventurous personality, I guess. Not everybody's cut to do that. So my next question is, as you have just stated that you have been pursuing first a career in trained as an astronaut, then military, then you got into medicine. And from what we are experiencing right now, from my experience from medical school or getting into medical school, then into ophthalmology, I believe that most doctors, or most, let's say, enthusiasts who wants to become doctors, they are adapting the model of this production line model, that you just go straight ahead from high school to pre-med. In US, here we go straight ahead to the medical school and then go into their residency, and whatever they do in between in our culture is somehow perceived as a waste of time. Because I've been there, I've done that, I've zigzagged around, and then I went to ophthalmology, and even through ophthalmology I also went to different places, and everybody, there are a good chunk of people who will tell you you're wasting your time. Deep down inside, I know I haven't been wasting my time, but you are the experienced one here. What do you tell us? Do you think we're getting into this production model, just this line going, and we're not experiencing anything else? And how does that affect
I'm afraid we are,
ophthalmologist?
and I don't agree with it either. Certainly I didn't follow that path, and not just because of that story, but I would always say follow your dream as opposed to the machine. Now, there are other influences. There are parents that are an influence. There are other family and friends. There's finance. So it's multifactorial, and you can't, one size doesn't fit all. But I would vote to oppose the production line. I think everybody needs to be able to get off and try something else for a while. And if you are destined, you'll come back and find it. So I would say that and remember that the making of an ophthalmologist should be really the making of a physician. And I believe in the idea of physician first and subspecialist second. So if you do something that expands your physician horizons, gives you a leadership accent, gives you some administrative responsibilities, there's a lot more to medicine than the clinic, for sure, than the clinical physician. And I think a broader view is healthy.
Yeah. I would love to take Dr. Rao's opinion on that, because he is, program director, or I believe he sees a lot of physicians who are admitting for fellowships or to get into ophthalmology residency. When he sees an ophthalmologist who has not been in ophthalmology since day one, or has been going to and fro, experiencing here and there, and then sticking to ophthalmology and doing well in ophthalmology, is that a positive thing or a negative thing? You look at it, the CV, because everybody wants to know, what are you looking for in young ophthalmologists? Who are we looking for the next residents or next fellows that are going to shape the industry? I'm just going to unmute you for just a second. I'm not really fluent with Zoom, so it's going to take me a bit. Yeah, Dr. Rao.
Yeah, now I'm unmuted. So, hi everybody. So first of all, my role, I am involved in the residency program at Tufts, New England Eye Center in Boston. I'm not the program director for the Tufts program, but the Tufts resident a lot of time at a community hospital where I work, which is called Leahy Hospital. And so I'm the residency program director for that portion of their training. But I am involved in the residency selection process as far as being on the selection committee, and we read applications and interview candidates. We just got through doing that, a few months ago. That's my role in their program. And so I train all of their residents for their first cataract surgeries and so on. So, to answer your question, I think when we recently had our application cycle, one of the most unique things, I think, is people who have a variety of life experiences. It was amazing to see on paper, when you read an application and you see the numbers, a college transcript, medical school transcript, test scores, you really cannot get the sense of a person. And what's amazing about these applications, since they're all online and generated by websites, there are typically 80 to 100 pages in one application. And there is no way that anybody can read all of that. So the two things that I found most helpful are the personal statement and the letters of recommendation. And that's what I found to be pretty much all I would really have time or energy to read, because we're reading dozens, 40, 50, 80 applications. And this is after they've been filtered based on other parameters like scores. So my own feeling is the unique life experiences, the more you can sort of do things outside of medicine, develop interests, either on your own or with family, and then share those in an application. I really think that's what will help people stand out. Well, what are we looking for? Of course, you don't need to be interested in ophthalmology and committed to the field, but also have a variety of other interests and hobbies that I think are really important.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Rao. This also brings me to my next question, or our next explanation. Could you tell us, Dr. Mike Brennan, how did YO start, and what was the enticing factor, let's say, to start a YO, and why do we need YO right now? So multiple questions in one. So how did it start? Where did it start first? It was in Europe, I guess. Then it got to the US, and it was more, popular there. That's what I think I've read somewhere. And why do you think we need YO right now, Young Ophthalmologist chapter in our region? Why it is very pertinent to have young ophthalmologists having a voice or some sort of representation?
I can't answer the exact date that YO originated. It was actually the vision of some SOs, some senior ophthalmologists, who realized that the young ophthalmology population was not included as much as they should be. And wisely, these older ophthalmologists said, we need to find a way to incorporate them to get them going. What do they like? They enjoy the social experience. They enjoy something without too much structure, not too many rules, not too many dues, not too many formal meetings, not too much of a curriculum. They want to be more spontaneous, more social, and these senior ophthalmologists said, I think we can find a way to do this. So the American Academy of Ophthalmology did form, I think at an annual meeting, an open reception for young ophthalmology. And they said, any resident who wants to come and and share some ideas about what we can do collegially without too much superstructure, the door's open. And so the AAO did form a YO organization. I think a lot of people were suspicious about it and said, this seems crazy, but it has been wildly successful. The Academy then put a little more structure into it and developed chapters with officers and some responsibilities, some committees to make things a little more structured. Globally, SOE captured this pretty quickly because I think we were sharing with them through the leadership program the results of the YO activity, and they said we can do that too. So SOE runs a very active YO program. And in fact, our AAO Leadership International participant is going to be the president of the SOE YOs next year. She's from Serbia.
Very nice.
Helena Potic from Serbia. The third YO program was the Pan Am, and because of our AAO and Pan Am relationship pretty tight, it was easy for Pan Am to sort of fit in the picture. Then the Asia Pacific leadership said we should do this too, and a young ophthalmologist from Singapore, Marcus Ang, ANG, has been the champion for the Asia Pacific activity. Miyako talked about it, and I don't know that Miyako ever came through with it. Manal Altarian from Dubai was the champion for quite some time of this activity. And I think, so the inspiration is there, the willingness is there. I think I mentioned to you that there's a very young ophthalmologist, Imani Tarib.
She's with us right now, actually, and she's giving us some insights as well. Yeah.
All right, wonderful, because she's a tiger, and I think she's going to do good things across North Africa and harmonize the Middle Eastern nations with North Africa. And I think YO is a perfect place for this, along with, and I don't mind saying, women in ophthalmology. I think that's going to happen too.
Yeah, well, hopefully. So the main roles for YOs, the main roles that are recognized, what do they do other than social events? How can they participate in being or actively participate in their respective societies? And is it just through conferences, or they can develop their own programs? Like we're working on developing outreach programs and stuff like that. Is that also from the core of YO, or is it just further off the idea?
I think to enumerate, education and training issues are very high, certainly. And across the globe, the wide variance in the way ophthalmology or any surgical residency occurs is pretty fierce. Because in the US, as most people know, by the time you are a second-year resident, you've done quite a few cataracts. And by the time you're a third-year resident, ready to graduate, if you are not competent in cataract surgery, you're probably not going to graduate. Whereas in Serbia, where my friend Helena Potic lives and practices and was educated, you don't do much surgery as a resident. You can be in a residency for 3 or 4 years and never get inside an eye. And so I think young ophthalmology is one way to try to transform the culture. Now, who's to know what the ideal model surgical training is? It's not for me, for sure. But I think young ophthalmology and their energy and their place at the table will change it. So education training is one. Finding residency, finding post-residency fellowships is another excellent YO dimension. They know what they need, they know what they want, and they know how to talk across borders now. There are the Pyatt Fellowship. David Pyatt has an excellent fellowship for postgraduate training, and YOs are dipping into that pool pretty well. I think the first years of practice, depending on how you define a YO, and I think most people say it's the years of training and at least the first 5, maybe the first 10 years of practice.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you get established in a practice? How do you interview? How do you seek to, to become not a partner at first, but an employee, part of a practice?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to go public to public ophthalmology? Do you want to be in private practice?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to go into military ophthalmology, Veterans Administration ophthalmology in this country? So practice variance and practice opportunities is another place where YOs can share, can invite speakers, can communicate electronically and personally.
Yeah.
So I think the expanse is pretty wide, and I don't know that I even covered 2/3 of it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what do you think one of the highlights or the best achievements that has been done by YOs in the US recently? Or throughout the years? What do you think a milestone was for YO? Like there is impedance in everything, I think. Anything that starts off, there's a bit of impedance, not everybody would accept it, or at least you won't find people to follow through, or people are a bit skeptic. I don't have a lot of time for that because, we're invested in our clinical life and we don't want to, we want to take precious time from that for something that is unsure. Like for us, we're relying on the base. What made YO a very respectable and very, well represented society or, committee in the American Academy of Ophthalmology?
And clearly it's the energy, the youthful energy is what I think brings them into the family.
Okay.
And the other reason is that they've been willing to become active in another topic that you may want to take up down the line, the so-called oculopolitics.
Mm-hmm.
They've been willing to become active advocates at the state level, at the local level, at the state level, at the national level, to influence decision makers for favorable ophthalmology outcomes. What is it? The budget. The healthcare budget gets chopped into quite a few pieces every year, and ophthalmology wants their share of the pie.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And if you've got young ophthalmologists saying, listen, that gray-haired guy, he's over the hill. He shouldn't be here. You need to listen to me because I'm the one who's going to be taking care of your patients, your state's patients for the next 25 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to be at the table. And I think young ophthalmology has, in many states and in many nations, has been able to do that.
So young ophthalmologists need to prove themselves as good representatives for their own cause so that they can get, let's say, validity or get well recognized.
Sure. And oculopolitics means you're influencing. The word politic comes from a Greek word meaning the activities of cities.
Mm-hmm.
So it's how a city in the old days in Greece apportioned its assets to affect the public life. And if you don't have a place at the table listening, or if you can't get the decision maker to listen to you,
mm-hmm.
then your profession, your patients are not going to be as well served as the orthopedic surgeon who wants to have a new machine.
Mm-hmm.
And you need a new machine in your hospital also if you're going to serve the cataract population or the retina population.
Yes.
And so you need to be there. Now you need to make alliances, and everybody should know their pediatrician. Every ophthalmologist should know their pediatrician, because there are some other professions, like, I'll get political here, the optometric profession would like to start doing surgery, and they wouldn't mind injecting children.
Mm-hmm.
So if the pediatrician says, wait a minute, I only want a trained specialist ophthalmic surgeon to be injecting my baby's eyelid, not a limited licensed provider. Yes, they're good doctors and they're very helpful in the medical scheme, but they're not surgeons, please.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So we need
and
to
this is where your relationship with
and affiliate with other, hence we have to have good connections with other societies, not only ophthalmic society, as you said before.
Correct.
Medicine in general. Yeah. This brings me, when you said also about what, the future and why YO is important. What do you think the future of ophthalmology carries in the region? As I believe you're well informed and you're always, around and you participate in our last MIACO. Where do you think we're going as a MIACO region and in Jordan in specific?
Well, I think this is a geopolitical question, and this is almost a definition of what MIACO, where MIACO is. There are boundaries that are uncertain. Jordan is unquestionably right in the middle of it, but Morocco and North Africa are a little more distant. Now, it does make sense to me to have Middle East, North Africa. As many of you know, the African Ophthalmology Council has formed, and it is Sub-Saharan Africa. It's an organization unto itself. The International Council hasn't really split the continent into North Africa, Sub-Sahara, and said, you must join MIACO and you must join AOC. But I think they probably will at some time. And I suppose right now that MIACO's leaders are convening with AOC's leaders in the International Council to come up with a geographical divide. As I mentioned, Pakistan was an active MIACO member, still is, but they also want to have a role in the Asia Pacific. So you might even say, where is MIACO? As opposed to where is MIACO going to be in 10 years? I don't really know where they exactly are right now. Now, I do know that your MIACO Jordan meeting was very well attended. The International Council was there. I wasn't privy to the finance and the big picture, but fortunately you had the meeting before 2020 because a lot of meetings this year
are getting canceled or
are history, right? So
now, yeah.
I don't know if I answered that, but MIACO needs to decide who they are and who they represent. Back to Jordan, I would encourage Jordan to keep an active relationship with the SOE. You do have, I think, an affiliate relationship, and I would strengthen that. The SOE is a strong organization. Their leadership program is excellent. Their administration is strong. I would encourage Jordan to keep an active relationship there. I would certainly encourage Jordanian and your society to seek roles and relationships with the American Academy through your YOs. I see Ibtisam's name on the screen here, I believe. And I'm expecting that she's going to be my Rotary guest before the Academy meeting this year. And I'm hopeful that you'll follow your stars yourself. So I think relations with the Academy are always wise. We have a very active Global Alliances Secretariat that publishes, that arranges fellowships and coordinates things like that. Keep your International Council membership for sure. There are fellowships there. And stay in the family, Jordanian Ophthalmology Society, for sure.
Yeah. And so do you think being in a YO and being really active within the YO would increase the chances for better educational pursuits afterwards, after graduating or after residency?
Unquestionably. And it's difficult for all the YOs to get under one tent anywhere. But there are ways for YO leaders to gather and share ideas and share connections and share professional relationships and insights, and then bring them back to the JOS.
Extend them. Exactly.
And there's every reason for you to strengthen MIACO by having a strong YO affiliation with your neighbor countries, and to accent and maybe to form another Miyako Leadership Program, and I'd be happy to help you with that.
Yeah, that would be great, actually, to bring this home as well. Yeah. This brings me to my second part of the talk, which is advocacy and leadership. If we can talk about it a bit. Like, what is the importance of having advocates? I believe we have kind of covered a bit of that, but what does advocacy means to you? What does it mean to you? Why is it important? Is it well practiced in our region from your observation, or do we need to strengthen it a bit more?
You need to strengthen it, unquestionably. And it's a different scene in every country. The
Exactly.
politics of medicine are different everywhere. Sometimes it's sort of down and dirty. Sometimes it's clean and upright, and all the cards are on the table.
Or a mix of both, maybe.
Or a mix of both, right. Mm-hmm. And you have to be prepared, and times change as well as people. Mm-hmm. Leaders change, and when different leaders are there, sometimes the rules are different. Mm-hmm. But the roles and relationships and the reasons are the same. Mm-hmm. I mentioned you can't do this alone. Advocacy can't be a one-man show. The president of the JOS can't go to Miyako and say, this is the way it's going to be, or to the Jordanian Medical Association and say, this is the way it's going to be. Like I said, get your pediatric partner to go with you, and you do something for them, and they'll return the favor.
Yeah, okay.
It isn't a one-night stand. Mm-hmm. It's almost a career.
Yeah, it's a relationship, a marriage.
It's a marriage. It is a marriage.
Oh, yeah.
And the better you marry your local, and I use that term sort of loosely, the better related you are to your local politicians, your local representatives, the better you'll do in the state or nationally or mm-hmm. internationally.
Yeah.
International decisions in ophthalmology are not as prevalent as in some other specialties. Mm-hmm. Infectious mm-hmm. disease, they would be likely more of an issue. International rules for the practice of the profession of ophthalmology mm-hmm. are not very strict or stringent. Mm-hmm. Unless I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't think they are.
I doubt it. No. No, yeah, you're right. I believe, I don't know why, but because ophthalmology can be very specific to each country, there are a lot of common playground for everybody, but you cannot just do international decisions once for everybody. It's not a one size fit all. Everybody, but I believe if you have international partners, it's going to enhance your outcomes nationally, and it's going to improve the quality of your work on the national level.
Exactly, and I would emphasize the fact that doctors really don't like to engage in ocupolitics. Most physicians don't like to engage in this. They think it's below them, or they think it's despicable, mm-hmm. and they say, why should I do this? And if everybody does a little bit, it makes a big difference. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because if you have only one person in your, in case of North Carolina, if only one person going to the state capitol in Raleigh and talking about scope of practice issues and who can do injections, mm-hmm. You're not going to win that battle. Mm-hmm. Other forces know how to play this political game better than we do. And most doctors do not like to engage in what I'll call advocacy or oculopolitics. Understandably.
But I believe, from my point of view, I believe if you do not get involved in advocacy in some way or another, sometimes unintentionally, somebody else is going to talk for you, and you're not going to get what you are determined to do at the end of the day. So you need to pitch in. I don't think being a passive recipient of the status quo is something that we have to adapt as a model. And I'm not actually saying for everybody to go and do a coup d'etat. I'm saying just be there, be vocal, say what you need. And that's for young ophthalmologists more than anybody else, because we're always feeling that we're the underdogs and we cannot actually state our minds because that's going to affect our, station or whatever part of the training we're doing. So I believe if we just gather and have like some solid affiliations, we're going to have good advocacy. We're going to have even greater benefits than just staying silent and waiting for everybody else to talk for us.
Strength in numbers, no question.
Yes. This brings me to my next question about leadership. What do you think makes a good leader? And I believe everybody leads in some way or another in their lives. In your practice, you're a leader. In your OR, you're a leader. In the clinic, you're a leader. There are many facets to leadership. So, but what does, if you can just sum it up, what makes a good leader?
There are a couple of one-word descriptors that are not totally captivating, but not bad. One of them is genuine.
Mm-hmm.
And I think most of us know what we mean when we use the word genuine.
Mm-hmm.
Sincere, believable, honest, willing to serve as opposed to willing to take.
Mm-hmm.
Authentic is another pretty good word. It means you have a little more, you've captured a little more of the leadership title,
Mm-hmm.
I believe. And these are good words. I would almost say, though, that you can sort of see it in a leader's eyes.
Mm-hmm.
You can see it in their eyes if they have that caring capacity.
Empathy, maybe.
Yeah, that's
Well.
a good word.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So those are some nice words. Now, leaders aren't, I don't believe that leaders are born.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that parents give progeny some characteristics that make it either more or less likely they could assume a leadership role.
Mm-hmm.
But leaders aren't born. And I don't know that they're made either. I think there's a combination of some natural ingredients and a willingness to serve. And I would say service is as much part of leadership as shouting.
Well, sometimes you have to shout your way through.
Right. There's something called the servant leader, and I don't, that word doesn't quite fit right with me, because I think the leader has to be certainly responsible.
Mm-hmm.
The leader has to have a vision and a set of values. Vision so that she or he knows where the ship is going, and a set of values that they're not going to break the rules to get there.
Yeah.
And the values
Ethical.
mean that you need alliances.
Mm-hmm.
Leaders have to be willing to share
Mm-hmm.
roles and relationships. So there's a lot of books written on leadership.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I've ever read quite the right one.
But I believe from your experience, you can spot or tell us what makes a good leader, which you have just said so eloquently. So I'm going to, I don't know if you want to add something before, or anybody wants to add something about our previous things. Because the last part I'm going to talk about is ophthalmology throughout and after the COVID-19 era. If there's anything that we have discussed before that I haven't asked you about, or if something you wanted to add, or anybody of our participants wants to add anything, just please let me know.
I'll make a comment. I woke up this morning thinking about YOJO, and YOJO sounds pretty cool.
Yeah.
But then I was thinking about one of my other really favorite countries, your near almost neighbor, Yemen. One of my
YOJO, that's going to be
fascinating. Yeah, one of my most fascinating visits was to Sana'a, Yemen, a few years ago. I have great friends there, and I thought if Yemen has a YO forum, they'll be called the Yo-Yos.
YOJO, yeah, that's going to be really the coolest of all.
Right.
Yeah. So anybody wants to comment anything about advocacy, leadership, or any challenges that are pertinent right now in Jordan, so we can ask them to Dr. Brennan or discuss them? Just let me know. Well, so I'll just I'll move on then. So right now, the most pertinent subject in the world is COVID-19 and how we're dealing with it. I believe so many of us had plans to leave for their fellowships or go do some observerships or do some research or meet some in social events and be in conferences right now. So many of them has been canceled and we don't know what does the future hold? So how can we, in the era of COVID-19, maintain the integrity of our practices? How can we learn more? How can we, not just be on the waiting list of life, rather be proactive in what we do in order to enhance our chances in the future in, elevating the quality of practice that we're doing, either by doing fellowships, research in the future. Because in Jordan, unfortunately, the opportunities for research and fellowships are a bit narrow. We don't have a lot of fellowship spots. We have only one institution, which is the military. We have discussed before that offers fellowships, and they're really limited. And and we have a lot of ophthalmology graduates that are seeking fellowships abroad. I believe the era of COVID-19 or this storm of COVID-19 has just put everything on hold. So how can we cope with that? And this is also a question for Dr. Rao. How do you think IMGs like such ourselves in Jordan, in the Middle East, can cope with COVID-19 without really relying on the chances, or let's say the prospects in the near future to attend a fellowship or research or maybe international meetings? And what is there for ophthalmology next? That's a very long question, so. Yeah. Oh yeah, I will. Okay.
Thanks. It's so frustrating that you can't fly to complete your training that I'm sure you planned on for months, maybe years to complete elsewhere. But on the other hand, I think I've actually been amazed at how nimble our organizations have been at creating these webinars, and not only organizations, but just informally, like this one that you're doing right now. I mean, how much time did it take you to put this together? Probably not that much time, as opposed to pre-COVID, you would have spent months working out the plan for this very session. So informal teaching like this is going to take off. And I actually don't think you need to travel across the world necessarily to get the training that you're seeking. Because of this, I think we're all going to be changing our meeting styles. I hope it doesn't mean the end of meetings, because I really enjoy attending meetings. I think it's important, but I think we're going to have more year-round learning that could involve surgical teaching as well. As long as you have a fast enough internet connection, you can watch entire surgical videos, not just the little snippets that we share in our talks, but entire videos. Just last night, I was doing a lecture for the Boston area residents. There were probably about 40 or so Boston area residents. And so we were doing a teaching about capsular tension rings, segments, and hooks. And we went through entire videos in real time, not the sped up videos where we only have 7 minutes to talk at a conference, but entire videos for 2 hours. We did a session. And I could do that because I could be sitting at home and I didn't have to be, physically at the location. So in some ways, I actually think this will improve the teaching. We had hoped, a lot of us had hoped that with the 3D, surgical scopes that are available now, that it may be able to simulate being there at the microscope, but it's just not quite practical. You'd have to have a special 3D glasses. You'd have to watch it on your phone or on a 3D equipped screen. So that I don't think is going to play as important of a role as some of us hoped that it would. But in most cases, at least residents and fellows who are traveling to the U.S., most of the time, because of our rules here, you're not actually able to operate on patients here. That's different in other nations, but at least here, it's quite frustrating where you take someone who's completed or done a lot of their training in their home country, and then come over here and just have to watch over my shoulder, or maybe scrub in, but not actually be able to touch the patients. It must be incredibly frustrating. So in some ways, I think this may help, because you'll be able to do this, and it won't depend on your own financial ability to pick up and move without income to another country for an extended period of time.
Yeah.
The other thing I think that we could do, I was thinking about this as you were talking about YO. I'm not involved in the AAO YO committee, but I'm very involved in the ASCRS Young Eye Surgeon Committee. And I actually think we could do some more partnerships, like even one-on-one mentorship type things, which can be helpful as well. And that's, of course, all possible to do electronically.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, that would be actually great. And I believe also the access that these kind of meetings have given us throughout the COVID era. I believe we didn't have, even if there were the same kind of meetings before, we didn't have time to attend them, because we would be swamped in our clinics and in our schedules. So attending these meetings from all over the world is actually really beneficial, and seeing the cup half full right now. But I believe eventually, in order to complete your training, actual formal training, you would need to travel. So that it's going to be a bit on hold, but throughout the time, I believe you can just immerse yourself in these training or learning possibilities that you've just mentioned. Dr. Brennan?
Well, I'm so disengaged from active practice, to tell you the truth, that I'm more interested in the organizational activities that are hampered by the fact that you can't get face to face. You can't get a face to face with a decision maker effectively now. Now you can write, you can call, and you can telemedicine or telepolitic, I guess. So that's probably a poor excuse. But the face to face is what really sets an advocacy effort into action, if you will, and that's crippled at this time. The other thing that I think that needs to be addressed, and I'm the least financial of all my capacities, I have trouble with balancing a checkbook. So finance is strange, but I think that organizations are going to be financially stressed. The American Academy of Ophthalmology, the International Council, any organization that relies on meetings and dues and products is going to be stressed, and that it may take a while to catch up from that. So, but I'm not. That's not my favorite question. I don't have a great answer for that.
Yeah. So right now, I think that's all the questions. These are all the questions I have. But if you have any comments, anybody wants to ask anything in order to Dr. Rao or Dr. Brennan, or anybody in the audience, it's going to be welcome right now.
One point I wanted to make is, I think we're able to have much more interaction in these sessions in some ways than we can in a conference, because at a conference, there's a certain time limit. You can't have everybody talking at once, whereas here we have the chat and the video all at once. But I think that one of the nice things would be, as each of our countries has our own Zoom conferences or whatever the web medium is, we may be able to share that with other countries and have panels that include many people from many different countries, just because we have a chance to meet in a way that that we don't normally have. So, for example, let's say AAO sets up a webinar, then that could be shared with the European ophthalmologists and the Miyako ophthalmologists and so on. We learn a lot from different practice patterns that are happening in different parts of the world.
I appreciate that, and I'll just sort of second that and tell you that the American Academy has people working on that right now to engage, and hopefully we'll be out of the sequestration in another few weeks, but we may not be, and there may be a rebound. So I would, I endorse the concept for sure. I appreciate what you said, Naveen, and I would tell you that the AAO is working on it. I didn't mention something else about leadership that I think it should be acknowledged. Especially in our organizations, it is extremely valuable to recognize the impact of the administrators in a organization, the executive directors, people like that. They're amazing people. They serve our profession. They often do it quietly without acknowledgement. So I would always encourage you to remember the secretary or the administrator who gets things done. It might be your idea, but there is somebody behind the scenes who makes it happen.
Yeah.
And don't forget that. Yes.
We have Dr. Nancy, I guess, who wants to add something. Hello, Dr. Nancy.
Yes, hello. Good evening, all of you. Mr. Rao, Mark Brennan, it's been a long time since I saw you. Very happy that this meeting has been arranged. I just wanted to say hello, cheer you on all the effort that you've been doing. I have known Mike since 2015, and he has been, he encouraged every single effort of leadership, any ophthalmology project, especially in the region. And so I think this meeting would be beneficial for junior doctors and doctors working to pursue a career path in some way or another, and to focus on where do we stand in ophthalmology in our region. So just to say hello for everyone. Thank you for this meeting, Mais, and hello, Mike. Hope to see you soon if everything is fine by the end of the year.
Yeah, hopefully. Thank you, Dr. Nancy. Thank you very much. So I'm looking. Also, we have Iman committing that, Iman from Morocco, Iman Tarib, committing that SOE is open for collaborations from YOs from outside Europe. So also we can do a bit of, you know, collaboration with SOE maybe to see how can we exchange the experiences amongst us. That will give us maybe a broader outlook in what is it that we have to do in order, because they're very active and they have achieved a lot. Maybe also a part of our affiliations or our mentoring, we can do it with SOE. Yeah. So any final words, Dr. Brennan? I believe everybody else is, let's see. Yeah. You're muted just a bit, Dr. Brennan. Wait a minute. Okay. Now now you're on.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks to the Jordanian Ophthalmology Society, to you personally, to all of the leadership there and the membership and the administrators. I'm hopeful that we'll be face-to-face soon. And I could say I'll see you in Las Vegas, and that's probably
Hopefully.
a good way to leave it. Hopefully.
Hopefully that's going to work out. Yeah. Thank you very much for being with us. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah. Thank you for your time. And thank you, everybody, for being with us. Thank you, Dr. Rao, for your invaluable input as well. And I hope we'll be able to meet everybody else in upcoming meetings. We're working on a lot in YO right now. I'm trying to pick up the minds of young ophthalmologists and what they think matters in our region, in Jordan especially, and then to go from there. We'll try and make it count, let's say, with our affiliations and with our programs as well. And eventually what I want to say is the aim and the main goal for young ophthalmologists all over the world, and in general in Jordan specific, to empower young ophthalmologists And it's not that we work for a certain person or a certain cause. We're working for everybody to enhance the quality eventually of our care by enhancing ourselves as physicians, as clinicians, as surgeons, and eventually as humans as well. I believe it comes full circle when we put all the aspects and not forget the human part. And we're trying to do it ethically, with empathy, and be as inclusive as possible. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
I wish you all a good night, and till we meet again. So good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much.